Welcome everyone to our loan officer training series. We will wait just a few minutes to get started here. So hang tight, wait till we go live on all the different platforms, and we will get started momentarily. We put up the chat there on the screen, so if you are just tuning in, go ahead and drop a comment there on the chat. I see some people already commenting. Jason says, is it me or is it cold? BRRRR. That is definitely what we're going to be talking about here today. As you see, something that we're always excited about here at the Mortgage Calculator. Nick and I, are pretty passionate about it ourselves. So definitely excited to get into this. Just wait one more minute here while we go live on all the different platforms. All right. It looks like we are live everywhere, so we are good to go to get started. So we'll go ahead and take off the chat there, then we'll get into it. There we go. So welcome everyone. My name is Kyle Hershey. I'm the COO of the Mortgage Calculator, joined here by our president, Nick Hershey, and our sales manager, Jose Gonzalez. We do this sales training every Wednesday. We do one on Tuesday as well, but Wednesday nights we do our sales training at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Tonight is a great subject that we're very passionate about here, which is the BRRRR strategy and how loan officers can use that strategy to do more loans, get more clients, and keep clients satisfied because they can make income and build up their real estate portfolio. So Nick is definitely really into the BRRRR strategy. So I'll let him talk about BRRRR and what it is. And then Jose has some actual examples and quotes to pull up here in a little bit. So Nick, why don't you explain to everyone what BRRRR is and how we can use that?
Sure. So yesterday we were talking just about some general investor lingo. So this is definitely one of the acronyms that you could say it's kind of morphed into. So what we were talking about before is all the kind of nuts and bolts. This is kind of the loose strategy that kind of holds it all together. But investors have been doing this for, forever, right? For hundreds of years. This is how most investors, when they say real estate investor, are making money. They're buying properties, they're renovating properties, they're then renting them, then refinancing them, and then doing it all over again, repeat, right? So that's what BRRRR stands for: buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So this is the same thing that investors have been doing for, since the beginning of time, really. But there is kind of a new twist on it. Everybody calls it the BRRRR strategy. It's kind of, kind of more of like a kind of a Facebook kind of meme for this, what is known as the real estate investor. So yesterday we wanted to go and define some of the general terms. And then today we're going to talk about how to actually implement that, which at the end of the day is really when people talk about BRRRR, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about using investor strategies to buy properties that are distressed in one way or another. So Jose talked a little bit yesterday about buying cash and then refinancing afterwards, or creating your own property, ground up construction we've talked about, or doing a fix and flip, buying a property that is distressed and needs work, and then of course turning that into an end loan, or just traditionally flipping it and selling it. So really what we're talking about today is the BRRRR strategy is the overarching strategy for people that want to hold their fix and flips. So real estate investors, traditional real estate investors, traditional fix and flippers that are really going to hold their properties, which is kind of the more, I guess you would say, popular thing to do, which is what the BRRRR is all about. So do the traditional flip, but keep the property for yourself. And it's worked very well in the market while the rents have been exploding. Prices have been, pricing some people out, but with rents exploding, this strategy can very well work right now, whereas a traditional fix and flip may not work as well. So remember, when you're fixing and refinancing to hold it and then to do it again, it's not necessarily the same scenario as a fix and sell or a fix and flip where you're actually selling and exiting as a sale. So we're talking a little bit about a specific exit strategy, but I think Jose is going to talk a little bit about everything, right? Obviously, if the sale works, great. We're going to talk about how to get into a fix and flip or some sort of other distressed loan. And then the exit strategy. Most common exit strategy now is the refinance strategy. And Jose has a few good examples for that. And there's always the option to sell, of course, but make sure you talk to your borrowers. Make sure you understand the traditional model. Make sure you understand the new model of the fix and hold or the BRRRR strategy here, and use all of our tools as loan officers to execute, right? So we want to do the bridge loans if we're just doing something that's just needs cash, quick close. We want to do our fix and flip if we need rehab funds to get the property back into rentable shape. If we need to buy something that's ground up, obviously a piece of land, and build the whole thing from scratch to get it into rentable shape, and then either sell it or refinance it. That's what we're going to talk about here. But the specific, probably the best, most popular strategy is the refinance, repeat, and do it again. Jose alluded to it a couple times last night, but now we'll actually talk about how we execute that. So, Jose, you got a couple examples ready for us here?
Hey Nick,
Yes.
real quick, Nick. I just want to kind of make sure we clarify. So what you're saying is when the last R there of repeat, we're essentially building a portfolio when we're repeating from the same money that we put in from the beginning, right? That is basically the strategy is you have enough money to buy one property, you buy it, you renovate it, you rent it to stabilize the rents, you refinance it, and then you get the money back, and then now you can repeat, right?
Exactly. And you can scale it up. Eventually, you'll have two properties and so on and so forth. So, the traditional model of flip it and sell it and make, a little bit of money is great. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about kind of keeping that ball rolling, like Jose was talking about yesterday. So, we want to make sure that we can build a portfolio, which is the popular thing to do. So that's why the BRRRR has kind of come about, right? I think, 10, 20 years ago, the popular thing was being a flipper and making the, 50, 100 grand on the flips and being a successful flipper. But that would be a different strategy than a BRRRR strategy, which is really a holder. It's using the flip to get into a better position when you're holding it. So definitely kind of a twist on the traditional, but it's, the same loans we've all been doing the whole time. It's fix and flip loans or bridge loans, short-term loans, turned into end loans once they're stabilized. As Kyle said, the rents are stabilized, the property stabilized, obviously fixed up, nice, looks beautiful, going to appraise for a higher value. That's key to what Jose is about to talk about on the exit. So yeah, it's definitely something that is kind of a new twist. So you got the example there, Jose?
Yes, sir. Having a little bit of issue here, but I can go right into just going over some of the stuff that I touched base on yesterday, and then we'll go right into it. So we were talking about the exit strategy, right? That's a critical component here of what we need to do. So exit strategy again, critical for all fixed flip loans. You need to have a solid idea on your ARV market analysis. We're talking about collaborating with realtor partners for your for all of your market analysis, for your rental market analysis. So let's go right into it here. All right. So BRRRR, what does it mean? Nick, I wanted to share my slide.
It looks like you're sharing the wrong screen. You want to share your slide?
Yes, but okay, hold up a second. Then it's gonna give me the same issue. Hold up a second.
And keep in mind, everybody, for the loan officers, tons of business, right? Because every time there's a refinance, we're coming in here, right, and a purchase. So that's why the strategy is so beautiful. If you get investor clients that are doing this, you're doing the purchase, you're doing the refi, right, as opposed to a fix and flip. They're selling it to someone else who is doing, the own financing or the cash on their end. So the BRRRR strategy is giving us two loans out of the same project, right? We're doing the hopefully doing the first loan to purchase it, and then we're doing that second loan to refinance it, which gives them money to go purchase one again. So it's really the gift that keeps on giving when you have a client that's embracing this BRRRR strategy. Especially those ones that want to really grow their portfolio, which is a big thing nowadays. Like Nick said, it's kind of there's Facebook groups about this. There's a lot of the younger generation investing in real estate now and has really embraced this so they can build a portfolio, for years to come. And the way that the property value is raising right now, especially over the last few years, it's obviously very lucrative, right? To have a giant portfolio that you finessed one down payment, essentially one project into 5 or 10 or 20 over the course of some years. So very great strategy for the investor and very great strategy, for the loan officer that's helping that investor. And while we wait here too, another great thing, Nick, why don't you touch on, Nick, while we're waiting, just how you work with investors? You're very good at working with investors as far as you being a loan officer. When you used to do loans, that was pretty much all that you did. I like the way you are a consultant with them. Talk a little bit about how you are in on the deal, essentially, when dealing with investor clients.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously want to be excited about the deal, so I get excited about deals every day. So, I mean, that's really all it really takes is you just have to be interested, right? If you're not interested in what the person is doing, then nothing's going to work, right? If you're not interested in doing loans, you're never going to be a good loan officer. If you're not interested in real estate, you're never going to be successful in real estate. So that's really key. If you're not interested in what the person has to say and what they're planning, then you'll never have any success. So if you guys aren't really into planning your own projects, then it's going to be really hard to come off as an expert when someone's trying to explain their hard planned project. So I would get just excited about anybody's project as they are, because that's who they're going to work with, is someone who is actually wants to hear what they have to say and is excited about what they have to say and wants to help them, get to the end goal of what they have laid out. So really it's about being interested more so than anything, because they'll love to tell you about their project as long as you are genuinely interested. If you're just trying to get how much money are you going to spend, what's my loan amount, that's not something that's going to get people engaged or turn on. If you're going to talk to them about, my investments that I have and the other properties that they have and what their experience is with this, how much they think they're going to get for rents, what their profit margin is going to be, those are the things that get people excited and get us excited as well, and give us a lot of information about the loan too, right? We want to make sure we talk about the profit because that's really what's important for us to structure the right loan. So
yeah, this is one of the best opportunities to be a consultant, because we are wrapping it all together here. We're going from the inception, which is the fix flip, and then we're going to take it all the way through to the exit loan, or to the end loan, which is our exit strategy, which is the DSCR. And in between, from point A to point B, there's a lot of stuff to fill in, and that's where we as a consultant have to assist the investor who may have a lot of their own resources for information, for us to fill in all of those gaps and add value to the transaction. So we were talking about exit strategy right now. I was mentioning, just touching on some basic points that you're going to see in the actual analysis here, but we're going to need, we were talking about the realtor partners who we're going to have to collaborate with, because it's so important to have solid comparables for sale. If that's what you're, for the refi, obviously he's not looking to sell, but it's going to have to value for you to be able to do that refi. So we need some good sale comps, and we need some good rental income comps so we can know where we stand, and so that we don't get caught off guard when the appraisal and the 1007 come in, right? We want to be on point so we don't have any issues, because that's the determination the borrower is going to have to make if they're going to hold it or if they're going to sell it, right? If it's a profitable rental, then definitely they're going to want to hold that property, right?
That's
So,
one of the things that I would get excited about too, asking them about how much they can make if they're going to sell it, how much they can make if they're going to hold it too. So I would talk about both always as strategies so that the investors are ready for both if they need to, right? So
yeah, some of the tips to consider now, if they're going to do a 1031 exchange or something like that, then that's one rationale and one explanation, one logic thread there. But one thing you have to consider is that if they're not going to do a 1031 exchange and they're going to sell it in less than 12 months of ownership, there's going to be short-term capital gains, which are going to be higher than long-term capital gains. So keep an eye on that, because the short-term capital gains can be double, or if it's enough capital gains, even triple. So keep an eye out what's going on there so that you can properly consult your customer. Now, by no means am I saying put on your accountant hat. No, we do not pretend we're an accountant, just like we do not pretend we are an attorney. But that's just a little basic knowledge, something that then you can prod them to reach out to their tax consultant, because short-term capital gains are higher than long-term capital gains. So you want them to take that into consideration, prod them on that so that they don't get caught off guard, and then you could have saved them from an extra high tax bill. And obviously you got the refi for your deal. So BRRR, sometimes I think I'm seeing double or triple here. BRRRR. Okay, I think I got it right. It's 4 R's. So Nick already mentioned what that was, so we are now, that's part of that is the exit strategy. That is the concept for that loan. There's already an exit strategy objective there, right? Repeat, right? Refi, right? Renovate. You buy, renovate, right? Then you refi, and then you rent it, and then you repeat. You repeat with the money that you're going to get from the refi, and which you're going to be able to do because of the rent, because they probably have a bunch of properties and don't want to do a full doc loan usually. So the BRRR goes really good. So you see the important things you need to know here is, again, rental market study, and then you got to figure what are you going to do, right? I mean, we always have to offer the lowest cost alternatives. There's a good probability they're going to go with the DSCR because that's what's preferred by experienced investors that have multiple properties. But still, we got to offer, full doc, bank statement, P&L, 1099, DSCR to see what they prefer, and what is, the most feasible and viable option for the borrower. But like I mentioned, it is usually the DSCR if they're an experienced investor that have a bunch of properties. That's probably what's going to happen. So what would you do, right? Faced in this situation, you met this investor, you're thinking, wow, what's going on here? So now, best case scenario usually on the flip loan, because that's the first thing now that you want to do, right? We have to do the holistic approach here. So this is a scenario here. I'm taking this property all the way through to the end, right? And I'll make it, you can't get it any bigger there, but here we have our purchase price of $150,000, which also happens to be our as is value. We have $75,000 of renovation, and we have a $300,000 ARV, right? So in this particular situation, we have a loan amount of $202,500, right? $202,500. That's going to be the total. That's going to include the $75,000 rehab budget. So we're going to finance 100% of the rehab for this experienced investor. This is my experienced investor that has 10 flips, 10 flips in the past 3 years, good credit, good, pretty good meat on the bones here. There's some profit here. Hence, he was offered 85% loan to value there. So that's 202,500 total loan. But due to the deal, they're giving him 127,500 as the initial advance. So our borrower is going to have to come up for the flip deal with 22,500 out of their own pocket for the down payment for the deal, plus whatever closing costs are a requirement for this transaction, and he's going to rehab, right? 202,500 is our debt. Now, it's really here difficult to know if we're going to need a 0 seasoning loan or a 6-month seasoning loan. It really depends how long it's going to take the borrower to complete the $75,000 in renovation work. We don't know what it is. We don't know permits, all that kind of stuff. So we have a couple of examples here. So keep in mind, 202,500 is our deal. So now we're doing cash out refi here, right? 6-month seasoning at a 70% loan to value. So he's not getting much cash. We can set this up to 75% loan to value. But here, this example, I have them at 70% loan to value, and you have an 8.125% rate here that we can offer this borrower. So he's getting all his money back, getting a little bit extra. 8.125 actually has a lender credit. You see how these DSCR rates are dropping. And again, this is a 6-month seasoning option where the investor needed at least 6 months. We know where we stand when we're doing the loan application. There's no mystery in that. It's like, hey, Jose, I need the money. I'm going to be out of my loan, and you know where you're at. So, and the seasoning component is at loan application, by the way, not at loan closing. So here we can buy it down all the way to 7.25. Pretty good option, 6-month seasoning. Right, that's more the norm almost on the DSCR loans. So now the same scenario, but with 0 seasoning. Now you see the rate is higher, 0.75% higher. Little bit different guidelines. 0 seasoning is a benefit, but you're still looking at 8.875 with a little bit of a lender credit, and you can buy it down all the way to 8%. But now these are for 1.0 or greater DSCR. But what about the trophy property? What about that amazing short-term rental that you have no short-term rental comps for? Obviously, it's his own property. He hasn't been doing short-term rentals. There's no short-term rental history. There's no air DNA possible. Plus, air DNA is only for purchases also. I should add a condition on that. Air DNA is not possible to use for a refinance, right? So in that scenario here, we have our 0.75 to 0.99 DSCR. Now, this is not a no seasoning option, by the way, here. This is a 0.75 to 0.99. So here you have 9.5% has a little bit of a lender credit, and you can buy it down all the way to 8.375. Now, talking about less than 1.0, we do have a no seasoning option that is a 0.85 to 0.99 DSCR. So we do have that no seasoning option for that. I just don't have an example for that quote here. But this option I'm showing you here is for 6 months seasoning but the no seasoning option is available down to a 0.85. And we do have a less than 0.75 DSCR option also available with at least 6 months seasoning, but not a zero seasoning. So you have some good options here for your investors to transition them into the end loan, the exit strategy. So keep in mind all the different variables you have to consider. Are you above 1.0? Are you below 1.0? Are you below 0.75? Those are different things you can use, take into consideration to help you get the first loan.
So I was just looking here. I think we do have the 75 cash out for no seasoning as well. It looks like here. So that's what I was looking at on the other screen here. Now the seasoning, Jose, I just want to touch on that. Let me take your example off here for a second.
I mean, you're typically going to have some seasoning when you're doing this because you're renovating, right?
That's what I'm going to say. So really the only time you want the no seasoning is someone just buys a bridge loan, like buys a cash property for some reason, gets something. But typically if you're getting something distressed, there's going to be work to do, right? So no seasoning is very rarely needed. I know a lot of people ask for it, but how often do we really use it, Jose? I have rarely sent those quotes out, to tell you the truth.
I mean, everyone thinks that the reno is going to be quick, but we all know, especially if you're going to. What's up there, my man Kyle? Talk to us about the renovation being done in 3 months, right?
Every renovation I've ever done takes 4 times longer. Nick knows this with our Airbnb. It took 3 times longer than they said. My personal houses that I've done have taken a long time. So you all know. I'm sure all of you know that have worked with contractors. It takes you can figure 2 to 3 times longer than what they tell you, typically, right?
And it's very rare that you're going to be less than 6 months by the time you finish some work and you take a loan application and you close a loan application, right? So it's really easy to be seasoned 6 months on title. And many times these real big flips, 12-month seasoning is attainable, no problem. Most of them are going to expire pretty much their whole time, unless they're really good and they have a really good contractor. So sometimes you don't even need 6 months. Sometimes you can go for 12. I mean, most big projects are going to take 12 months, unfortunately, no matter how good you are. So don't worry too much about the seasoning. I know we get caught up in it a lot, Jose, and I know a lot of the people with a lot of questions. If you navigate non-recourse and all the stuff we were talking about last time, you can get stuck on the seasoning because it's a moving target, right? You're going to have to send, like Jose did, a bunch of quotes to say, well, if you finish it quick, here's the option. If you don't finish it quick, here's the option. If you take the time I think it's going to take, here's the option, right? So we want to give our investors a few different options. As Jose said, a few different exits, right? They can always sell it. Hopefully you hook them up with a good realtor so that they know the sale, right? You don't want to force them to do a refi with you, but we want to have all the options. They can always sell it. They can do this refi, or this refi. Depending on seasoning, they can do, as Jose said, full doc refis, right? There's nothing stopping a fix and flipper from doing a full doc investment property refinance when they do the end loan to save a little bit of money, right? Our full doc rates will be a little bit cheaper than the DSCR rates. So a lot of strategies there. I usually do full doc loans myself. I have a few DSCR loans and a few full doc loans, right? Jose has to work extra hard when we do full doc loans for our investments, when we're coming off of a rehab or something like that, where we want to make it stretch, right? We want to get the higher LTVs as well when you come in with full doc. So don't forget that you can do a fix and flip into a full doc loan. Doesn't require a DSCR loan, but as Jose said, that's probably the path of least resistance for most investors to maximize their, minimize their personal exposure, as Jose was saying before, right? They want to minimize the amount of loans on their personal credit.
I really like how Jose pulled up the fix and flip first, right? As the first example, because that is how you can walk your clients through and say, look, do you want to make this cash, or would you rather do the BRRRR strategy and roll this into another property and then another property? And so consulting them, giving them those options. And a lot of investors don't realize they can do that. They don't know that they have the vehicle to do that. A lot of them think they just want to fix and flip, and that's their way of real estate investing. They want to buy houses, renovate them, and flip them because they may not know about the BRRRR strategy, or just may not know how it works, or may not know that you can use the DSCR to so easily, well, in general, maybe easily accomplish this. Aside from the renovation might be hard, but the DSCR is really something that allows this to go really smoothly. As Nick said, they could do 10 properties at one time. They can be picking out properties left and right, doing this, DSCRing them. So it's absolutely amazing to utilize, especially the DSCR loan, to accomplish their goals. And it's our job as a consultant to let them know that those options exist.
Yeah, we got a question in here from another Nick about an investor with 10 plus properties. Those investors are not going to want to do the full doc route because they've already maximized all their, full doc options. Anybody with 10 plus properties is going to be wanting to do the DSCR because they're going to not even really have an option to be able to finance more. Let's get into a couple questions here, I guess, real quick. So we had a question here. Do these loans work for building a 4-family manufactured building? I think that's a little misconception there. There's no manufactured homes that are multifamily. So you're just maybe talking about the method of construction being a quick build or something, I guess, Jose? Is that what you're kind of getting out of this?
Yeah, looks like one of those, lean-to, put them together.
Yeah, maybe a lean-to type concrete wall, tilt up kind of thing or something.
But basically, the fixed flip loan is for renovation. It's not ground up construction. So if they want to build an investment property, it's not going to be a primary or second home. By the way, that was our rate show topic this morning, renovation loans. And before that, we did the one-time close. So if they want to do an investment type property, they would need to do ground up construction, which is for investors. Fixed flip is for investors, but it's for renovation only, not for a full build where you're like, you don't even have a foundation or anything like that.
All right, we got another good question here from Jason. When you say no seasoning, does that mean the new value we use? That's a very good question because there's two different things, right? So you want to talk about seasoning and determination of value. They're two different things in the same rule, right? You'll read it in the same guide, but two different things.
Absolutely. Now, if it's a rate and term refi, right? If they're not cashing out any money, then you're always going to use the current market value as the appraised value, right? There's no seasoning requirement like they mentioned on a rate and term, and seasoning means seasoning on title by the current ownership. And now, if you had it in a personal name and you moved it to an LLC name and you're 100% owner of that LLC, and so nothing changed in the ownership percentage, only that you changed it from your personal name to your LLC, they'll consider that ownership contiguous, uninterrupted, right? You'll get the full term of ownership there. But that's why, seasoning on title is what we mean. And if you have the required seasoning for the guidelines that we're using, then you will get to use the new market value versus the purchase price plus repairs, which would be the alternative to one of these evaluations.
So in other words, when you're looking through the guides there, Jason, there's seasoning, which determines the cash out determination of value. So it'll say 0 to 6 months. The cash out determination of value will be determined by the lower of purchase price or purchase price plus repairs or whatever it is. And then it'll say seasoning of 6 to 12. The cash out determination will be X, Y, Z. So you just got to look in there. As we said, there's only a couple outlets with these cool no seasoning options. So we have them. But the more common options are the 6 months and whatnot. A couple other good questions here. Let's get to. So I alluded to this one earlier. Nick was asking if we have an experienced investor, owns 10 plus properties, but are not an experienced flipper. So that's a good question. That does count towards experience on some of our programs, right, Jose?
Absolutely. At some of our preferred fixed flip vendors, they will ask property ownership, investment property ownership is one criteria because they want to know if you know how to manage properties and make the payments, obviously. And then the next category would be flipping experience. And when we're talking about flipping experience, remember, it's with them as the owner of the flip from the purchase to the renovation to the sale. They have to be on the paperwork. That's experience.
Absolutely, because a lot of contractors think that they've done flips, right? You'll get a contractor that says, "Hey, I flip houses all the time." Well, they have to have been, as Jose said, it has to be them that made the purchase and them that made the sale for a profit, right? Can't have a negative one on there. Looks like there's some other good questions here as well. Good questions. Keep them rolling in.
What I was gonna say is also if you look at the values, they'll give you like a credit for an investment property for a flip, right? So 10 property ownership might equate to 5 flip experience. So there is some sort of factoring that goes on there. I was trying to look it up, but I didn't see it. If another question from Nick here: if an investor comes to us after buying a property in cash and needs renovation funds to get it ready for tenants, what would you recommend? The DSCR, cash out? That's a tricky question. If it needs renovations to be ready for tenants, it depends on the condition, right? If it's not livable or if it has subject to items marked on the appraisal, it is not able to do any sort of regular traditional loan. We'd only be able to do a fix and flip.
Now, keep in mind, if you only need to, put a new kitchen, but it has a kitchen, it's just old and ugly.
Exactly.
That's okay, as long as the appraiser may ding you a little bit. If the comparables have renovated kitchens, they may ding you a little bit there and give you a condition adjustment of $5,000 or something like that, nominal. They can't really go, adjust it down that much. So. But if the issue, or needs renovated bathrooms, but they're there. But now, if you're missing a toilet, if you're missing an AC, if you don't have kitchen cabinets, that or any of those situations, that's not going to be able to close with any kind of non-renovation type financing. So that's where, if it was a primary, it'd be a renovation loan, the 203K or the ones we went over this morning. And if it's a non-primary like this, it's going to be a fixed flip loan. Is what you're going to need.
Mm-hmm. And let's see here. So Geneva's asking just a general. So the advantage for a fix and flipper to DSCR is to regain their cash to buy another again, correct? That's what BRRRR means. Exactly. You forgot the last R, the repeat. That's what the repeat means there, Geneva, is once you get the money back, you can repeat it and you still own a property, right? That's still cash flowing, hopefully, if the DSCR is over 1, right? We're still leaving them with a cash flowing property and they get their money back to do it all over again. The plan there.
And if you did a good job, like we all know that you will get the new loan for the fixed flip. And then, the whole RRRR will keep happening and you'll get the new DSCR loan to get more money and, keep repeating.
Exactly. The repeat is key. That's why we wanted to touch on this topic, is if you can talk the lingo for investors and understand their needs, wants, and give them advice, as we talked about. I think the thing Jose just mentioned is one of the biggest things. I've talked many investors out of a fix and flip just for a new kitchen. It's like, okay, well, do you have some money to do a new kitchen? Yes. So then why are we going to do a short-term loan for 12 months for 12% interest or 11% interest when we can do a DSCR loan for 6-7% interest and you have a little bit of cash? We could also do the higher leverage on the purchase of the DSCR loan or the cash out in that case, whatever it is, rather than doing the fix and flip. So I definitely recommend that you guys, if the property is, what would you say, Jose, habitable, right? If it has a bathroom and it has a kitchen, definitely recommend our investors to stay away from the fix and flip if we can. If we can stay in the DSCR and just increase the leverage if we can, as long as it's going to come back. It's okay if it doesn't come back in perfect C1 condition. That's a brand new build, right? But anything C3 or better, will be just fine. Doesn't have to be C1 or anything like that. So definitely talk your investors out of the fix and flip in that case, but that's kind of the consulting job there. All right. I don't think we have any more questions. You want to wrap it up, Kyle?
Yeah, absolutely. Great tool, right? Great tool to have at your disposal to talk to your investors about. And again, it's a preference. And as Jose did in these examples, you can go through, you can send your client different quotes, right? They can tell you this is what the ARV is going to be. And you can say, look, here's the options then. From what you're telling me, you can make $100,000 cash into your pocket if we do the fix and flip, or you could have a whole property and then get a whole new property and add properties to your portfolio. Which is it that you want to do with the same investment, right? That is the key. Same investment. Are you going to then fix and flip it and just cash the money out? Or are you going to flip it into another property and then another property and then another property? And guess what? By the time you get 5 properties, you can cash out that first one and get a bunch more money out or sell it or whatever. Now, season.
That's when they start buying 2 at a time. They start buying 2 a month, right? And then
the
you're
value
rocking
is
and rolling.
raised. Exactly. And so the possibilities are just absolutely endless.
Let's take this last question from Nick here real quick. I know Jose wants to touch on this. So we do have fix and flips for lower loan amounts. So Nick is asking, in the Midwest, a lot of properties are cheap. Are there options for smaller loan amounts? How do you structure that, Jose? Can we do a fix and flip to a portfolio?
Yeah, well, assuming it depends how small it is, right? Because we can go on the traditional non-portfolio DSCR option. We can go as low as $75,000 on the loan, so that would be at a 75% loan to value. That would be $93,750 value. So if you got anything around there and up, we have the loan for that on the regular route. However, what you may be talking about there, is $70,000-$80,000, $78,000 properties that cash flow very well. So we do have the portfolio option. We can go as low as $50,000 loan allocation per property. So that's a really good option. Now the key is though, it's going to have to be, if this person had 3 or let's say 3 properties or 4 properties, whatever, that he just bought, with the fixed flip loan amount, and he can't do it, then he can put the 2, the 3, or the 4 into, because we can do the portfolio with as little as 2 properties with this particular option. And it is a no ratio DSCR option, even though those properties are probably going to DSCR at like 1.5 or 2.0. But, if there's no other way to do the deal, yeah, we can put them into a portfolio. And down the road, they can refinance the lot when the value goes up and cash it out again.
And the fix and flip too, remember the purchase price is pretty irrelevant, right? So as long as there's meat on the bone on the end, what's the lowest fix and flip that we have though, Jose, as far as the total? It's still going to be around 75 on the total project at minimum. Yeah, because you're going to have the purchase price, but you're also going to have the renovation. So I mean, I've seen them where, like a $60,000 purchase, but then you have like $25,000 in renovations. I think you're probably right on point at the $75,000 mark for the loan. Yeah. So you probably end up having to get $100,000 ARV, right? Your end property is going to need to be at least $100,000, probably to structure a good fix and flip, right? But again, we got other options, so just advise your clients the best route there.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for the questions. That was great. Of course, we do this show every Wednesday, really Tuesday and Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern time here on our channels. So you can definitely tune in. You can visit us at themortgagecalculator.com if you want to apply and connect with one of our loan officers to go ahead and do some of these loans. I know some of you loan officers out there are probably going to be interested in doing this yourself, like Nick and I do, right? That's something that we're passionate about and something that as a loan officer should be right up your alley as well. And as Nick said, be passionate about it, right? I hope this fired everyone up. Even if you don't have that investment to do one right now, you should start gearing up for it. Get in some of those BRRRR Facebook groups, start looking at things and start living what you are, selling, I guess we should say, right? And start really getting into it, living it. And I hope that this excites some of you because it really excites us. And it's definitely something that you can use to your advantage, something in your tool belt there for the investor clients you talk to. So with that being said, we also have our show 11 a.m. Eastern time every single weekday, which is the Daily Mortgage Rates Live. So definitely tune into that as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope to see you next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time for the next loan officer training. Everybody take care.
Thanks, everybody.